Assalamu alaikum. This is Amina from New Wave Global. Today, my conversation is going to make your taste buds tingle and your mouths water. Chashni, Namkeen, this is just not a blend of beautiful, tasteful words, but these are actual physical places where you can go and satisfy your cravings for sweet, for savory, or something just addictive. I have today with me three young entrepreneurial women who are founders and the managing team of these delightful eateries. Welcome, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, nice to be
Hello.
here.
Thank you for having us.
Alaikum assalam. Lovely to have you here today. So I have, first of all, with me Rabeea Chaudhri, who is co-founder and head of marketing for these restaurants. I have Amina Chaudhri, who is also a co-founder and head of operations. And then I have Freeha Chaudhri, who's also a co-founder and head of operations for these restaurants. So I'm going to dive right in. We'll start with you, Rabeea, maybe. So just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into this. How was it a family business or was it your dream job? What made you become involved with this?
Hi, Amna. Definitely never thought of it as a dream job. I actually used to work a full-time corporate job a couple of years ago. And then when I got married, my brother-in-law, Amna's husband, Usman, had this crazy idea about wanting to open up a restaurant. And I think when he, at first mentioned it, none of us really took it seriously, and we thought it was just such a crazy, far-fetched idea. And then I think COVID happened and that kind of, just changed something in all of us. And, he ended up finding a location and we just went with it, opened up literally during peak COVID. And 4 years later, here we are. I've like now fully devoted myself to the business. If you asked me 4 years ago, I never thought, this is what we would be doing. So it's been a crazy experience, but I think it was just fate. We took a chance and I think, alhamdulillah, God has been great to us and it really just worked out in our benefit.
What about you, Amina? Did you make that drastic switch from corporate job to being?
I did. I was actually in college, is my senior year. And I was doing an internship in the city, 9 to 5 in an architect firm. So yeah, like we would talk about it and like we would go and try all these places. And then, we were like, imagine we had like something like this. And so, yeah, that's where Namkeen came from. And then Chashni stemmed from it because I was like all about brunch and like, the sweet side. So like I would like tell my husband, Usman, I'm like, I want a brunch spot, just like you kind of got your hot chicken spot. So like that's how it came about.
Okay, very interesting. Maria, you'd like to add something to it?
I just want to say that like the rest of the other two, I didn't have a corporate job. I was just staying home. I was a stay-home mom. So Namkeen was really, very refreshing for me because I could go out and, like start, working again and actually, make myself like feel like I was being useful. Like I used to stay home and it was very hectic, especially COVID, when COVID hit, when everybody was home, it kind of just added to, the whole feeling of being left out, feeling left out, and just feeling that like there's nothing to do at home. So when Namkeen, the whole idea started, it was a very fresh, new idea, and everybody jumped on it, and we were like, okay, we have to, take it somewhere.
Yeah, I can see that. You really embraced it. I can see Namkeen right behind you.
Yeah, I'm actually at the Brooklyn location today. I just happened to be here.
So coming back to the names, Chashni, Namkeen, they're so nostalgic, but they make you feel closer to home. What's the inspiration behind the names?
So Namkeen, we kind of started like when the whole idea of the restaurant came into our minds. We were like, okay, we have to come up with the nostalgic, obviously, like a name that is, like not very common and also like that's close to our hearts. So we had a few options, and then everybody kind of agreed on Namkeen because it does kind of take you back home. Like, it brings
Yeah.
back the memories of all the, the savory, um, you know, um, food basically, or snacks that we have tried and had, growing up. It was also very like a catchy name, like, especially in Pakistani culture, if you speak Urdu and you hear Namkeen, okay, like, you're like, okay,
Yeah, it
yeah,
intrigues you.
intrigues you, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how Namkeen's name came about. And Chashni was a similar process. So we had Namkeen and we're like, okay, we're doing something sweet. So, Namkeen and Chashni kind of like go together. So that's how we kind of came up with the name Chashni.
Yeah. It felt like a good polar opposite of
Yeah,
Namkeen.
it
Like we
is.
had this one thing and then now we had this other opposite of it.
So, Rabia, you kind of touched on it a little bit. So, but I'm sure there's more to the story than Amina's husband just because I know all of us, this is like, post-dinner talk for most of us, when we get together with friends, we're like, oh, I want to open a cafe, I want to open a coffee shop or something like that. But there's more to actually realization of that conversation. So tell us a little bit more about the story that's behind the inception of these restaurants.
So we used to have this tradition, which we still do. Like we would have these Sunday davats where, we would make time as a family and get together. Um, we have a lot of family here, and we would always kind of make it a point to take time out and see each other. And I think at a certain point, during these davats, Amna's husband Usman would start, just like recipe testing, experimenting. And I think at some point, fried chicken like really became his specialty, from like testing different like brines, different marinades, different like I don't even know what you call it, like the coatings. Um, and every other week, like, we would all go over, try it out. And it was such a, we started off with the clucking waffle sandwich, which, is, I think when people think of us, it's the most unique and special item that we have. And that was kind of like what he started playing around with, like testing out different waffles, different chicken batters. And soon, we had this concept of like a clucking waffle sandwich. And, after that, it really just, I think it all just started happening really fast. Like at first we never thought about it. And then when it did start happening, it felt like so many doors were just being opened for us where, we found a location, like the contract worked out, the lease worked out. We were open, and I think, it's safe to say, we were all there for it. We know how like crazy it was when we opened. I think it was also just the essence of timing for us, really. Like, it was at a good time. But yeah, the inspiration was really just the love for food. I think even that speaks so much about our culture, like about the element of hospitality in South Asian culture and how, you get together and like food is like the love language. And that's exactly what we wanted to portray at Namkeen. Like when people come in, yes, it's about the food, but it's also about the experience. It's about the experience of bringing people together, showing them like what our culture is like. Like we took like this very classic and traditional item and added our own flair to it, in such a beautiful way. So I think that's kind of where it came from. A lot of just, we all grew up, all of our moms are wonderful cooks. We come from like a family of people who know how to cook. So I think taking all that, we were able to create this thing that's now ours.
Yeah, you're actually right on the money where when you said that nothing unites us more than food.
Yes.
Yeah, we all get together on that. Amina, so I was researching you guys, and it seems like that commingling of Pakistani ingredients and American culture, that's your catchphrase. So where does
Yeah.
that come from, and how do you explain that?
I guess I can speak more about it in Joshni's perspective.
Yeah.
So um actually mainly speaking, we grew up as an immigrant, especially us, like my family. So we were always trying to like figure ourselves out in America. And like also when you would go back, it would kind of be like figuring ourselves out in Pakistan. So I think we found our medium through food. We were able to show how you can mingle both Pakistani flavors and the American culture into like one. So this is our like love language of like trying to portray ourselves with both. So I think that's where the phrase really comes from.
So I know there are lots of fusion restaurants out there, trying something new every day. So what made you think that you'd be successful, that there's a niche for your kind of fusion?
I think when we first opened up, there weren't that many restaurants like that. In COVID, we were like one of the few who brought this idea of like bringing Pakistani and American culture together. And we kind of had our own flair to it. And we also like love doing collaborations. So like with like local foodies or like just local community. And like, for example, like Zishan, we did like this GMV garam masala bill sandwich was like a crazy hit. So like things like that really sets us apart, and like people love that idea and the concept. So I think that's like what we do. And then also something like the Paro chicken cheesesteak, which was also very unique. So like yeah, like the whole concept of just commingling our flavors into like American dishes, I would say.
So tell us a little bit more about your fusion dishes or your trademark. Like you mentioned plucking waffle. Tell us a little bit more about that. Give people a visual of it.
So I think let's talk about the Thickaville sandwich, because that's like more fusion. So like masala, like chicken tikka is such a staple. So we really wanted to add that into our sandwich. And like staple things like tikka, mint chutney, onions, like these are staple dishes when you like when you start eating a Pakistani meal like sala and roti and stuff, or just chawal. So these things are in the dishes. So we kind of like took that apart and reconstructed it into a sandwich. And like the tikka bill kind of comes from Nashville. So like that's where the name stems from
Yeah, you can
too.
think of it as like a Pakistani hot chicken sandwich almost,
Yeah.
our version of it.
Freeha, you'd like to tell us about a drink, a dish, anything that's unique?
I mean, I feel like Amna and Rabeea already kind of touched on it. The idea was, we have really strong, these traditional flavors that we're so used to, and we wanted to incorporate those in our, basically American dishes, you could say. So we wanted to put our spin on them. So we took a Nashville and we coated it with a tikka sauce. It became tikka. Same thing with the tikka mac and cheese. Like mac and cheese is such an American dish.
Right.
And when you drizzle tikka sauce on it with mint chutney, it becomes a desi version
Yeah.
of mac and cheese. So
That's
that's what
pretty
we did.
unique, when you hear about tikka mac and cheese,
Yeah, tikka mac and cheese.
for a minute you're taken aback, you're like, oh, really?
Yeah, and then we
Okay.
came up with like, for example, dhamaka is like such a like traditional like Pakistani word, right? So
Yeah.
we came up with like loaded fries and we named it dhamaka fries. And then later on, like much later, we came up with another dish which is pataka fries, right? So even the names are kind of like rooted in
Explosive names.
our history and our tradition, because like we grew up speaking Punjabi and Urdu, so
Yeah.
these terms are very very common and very like dear to us, I would say. So when we put it on the menu, we kind of take pride in saying, hey, like look, we came up with these names, we came up with these dishes, and this is how we are showing the our like culture in food, basically.
Sounds good. I'm sure my audience is already licking their fingers, but I just want to know, what was the response here? How well received was the initial outlet, and then how did you expand?
I mean, it was very well received. So like when we first opened up 4 years ago, when we were talking about planning and quantities and, doing inventory,
Mhm.
we didn't even imagine that we would get the kind of people that we did. We talked in like very low quantity, and then we opened up. Um, we had lines out the door the first day. It kind of just went viral on social media. People would be waiting in hours, and we actually had to close for like 2 weeks to figure out how we are going to, increase the demand, because we weren't prepared for that. Chatham, our location in Chatham, it's a small spot. We didn't have like a huge kitchen to run all of these operations, so we literally had to close. We had to figure out like how do we feed more people. So I'd say the response was great, and it still is. I mean, 4 years and 4 locations later, I think it's very telling of how people feel about Namkeen. We were one of the first people to put this concept out there, so I think people are really appreciative of that. And I think the concept in itself, like we talked about chicken tikka mac and cheese. That's like one of our fan favorites at all locations. So I think it's really that factor of like uniqueness that people really enjoy. And it's what's allowed us to continuously expand into more locations.
That's great. So I'm going to take a little spin on the line of questioning. And so this is basically a family-owned and a family-run restaurant, right? It's very interesting. I don't think we've mentioned this, but you're all sister-in-laws. So you're all married to brothers, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work out? Does keeping it within the family make it easier, or has that led to headaches? Because, historically speaking or culturally speaking, sister-in-laws are not usually the best of friends and, don't work well together historically. I'm not, so how's that worked out for you guys?
I
Sorry, I was gonna say, I think we're breaking the stigma.
yeah.
You are.
I was gonna say, I think it's really benefited us keeping it in the family because when it comes to business, it's very hard to build trust and loyalty with individuals, right? Like it's a big operation. You're investing a lot of money into it. So I think for us in that sense, it's, we're able to rely on each other. I mean, between the six of us, we're able to divide and conquer. I don't think this is a one-man job at all, especially at this pace. So, between the six of us, we all have like our areas of expertise, our areas that we cover. And then I think that comes together really well. I think the probably the downside of it is like we've talked about this before is like, whenever we want to take a family vacation together, it's really hard because if, we're all leaving, then who's gonna stay behind? But yeah, I think in that sense, it's always benefited us, keeping it in the family this way.
So how do you solve the vacation problem then? Who ends up staying? Or is it a
No,
toss-up point?
no, we've done one actually so far only, but we do have some extended family. We have like some really good managers at our locations that are able to help. But obviously it's still, it's a scary feeling like all of us leaving, like what if something happens? I
Yeah.
think nobody really, people kind of underestimate the kinds of work that goes into a restaurant, the kind of operations. Um, I don't even do much of it. These two handle a lot more of the operations. I just, I'm on the computer. I do more of the marketing stuff, which is easier. So, staffing, inventory, there's so many problems that come up day to day. So it obviously is really difficult having to just leave that all and go on vacation. But, I think we always find a workaround.
I mean, we just came from a short trip and I was like, we're back. Uh,
Alhamdulillah, it works out. I feel like Allah
yeah,
helps us whenever we do have to go somewhere and we have to take a family trip, or even if it's like not even a trip, but we have to be somewhere like for a family gathering or a wedding. We haven't had any major issues, but it's hectic, but it works out. One way or
Okay.
the other. Yeah.
So you're still able to mix fun with work. The other thing that's kind of intriguing about you is that it seems like it's really heartwarming for me to see that it's a restaurant chain that is founded by women, led by women, managed by women. But I just wanted to ask if you have faced anything, has that been you faced more obstacles or some things that would have been easier for men as opposed to women in setting this up, dealing with it on a daily basis? Do you
Yeah,
think that you were disadvantaged at all in any way?
I think it's safe to say that we all work a lot harder than our husbands. They're great, but I think what I'll say, and maybe Amna and Freeha will agree with me. We're also all three of us are moms, so we are also balancing our families full time with all of this. And I think naturally, we know this. This is part of our South Asian culture. It is, primarily the mother's responsibility to care for the family, for the kids. So I think that is probably the biggest challenge that at least I face, when having to spend some time on work and also make sure I'm giving time to my daughter and, my husband at home. So I think, this is talking in a South Asian culture, this is probably a bigger challenge for us. But again, I think we're kind of able to just lean on each other when we need to. But I'd say I think that's the biggest challenge that we really do face as women in this industry, in this culture.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Rabia. And again, like having your family as your work team or your partners comes in handy in that sense, because we can easily take turns watching kids if one of us has to go somewhere, or we have to be at the restaurant or do something related to work. So yeah, so alhamdulillah, having in this business as a family has been a blessing for all of us. And the work-life balance is an ongoing challenge. But alhamdulillah, things have been okay so far.
Yeah, no, and it goes without saying that you have done an incredible job. Like you said, 4 years, now 4 locations, and it's still extremely popular and getting popular by the day. And I have to really actually vouch for you for your food, because your loading fries or the maca fries, pataka fries are my absolute favorite. My husband jokes about me. Because he's like, you have to have them at least once a week. So I love them. Thank you all. It was a pleasure talking to you. I am so glad that we were able to bring your story out here. Thank you again.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for having us.